Constantly being abused will make even the most kind-hearted person behave in unkind ways. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dr. Louise Williams and I'm the founder and CEO of Empowerment Through Thought. We are a philosophical coaching service and we help folks make sense of toxic people and rediscover who they want to be. If you're dealing with a toxic person in your life, you've probably noticed that every situation seems to somehow become about them. No matter how persistent you are in trying to get the focus of events and conversations to center on things that matter, toxic people somehow manage to always be at the center of everything. This is largely because toxic people are fueled by their desire to control everyone around them. In earlier episodes, we've talked about why the toxic person needs to exercise this control in order to maintain the fragile reality that they've created for themselves. In this episode, we'll discuss what you can do about it. I'll cover 3 things you can do to take back control from toxic people. Let's dive right into it. So the first thing you can do is stop giving the toxic people your mental energy. The most effective way that toxic people manage to control us is through what we do when they are not around. When a toxic person is in the room, they can use their various tactics to maintain control of the conversation and the like, but toxic people do a lot of work trying to make sure that they stay centered even when they are not physically present. As someone dealing with this toxic person, you've probably noticed that you spend a lot of time thinking about them, about the bad things they've done, figuring out what to make of how they treated you, wrestling with whether you are the problem. That stuff is a product of the abuse that toxic people dish out. That is not happening by accident, but that is a part of the goal of toxic people. You can regain some of your control first by just trying to reduce the amount of mental space toxic people are taking up within your own mind. Rather than analyze deeply why the toxic person did this, or if it was your fault, or any of that stuff, you can just acknowledge that this person is toxic. And their behaviors are just the normal behaviors for toxic people. This is not easy to accomplish. It will take time. However, every time you can shift your thoughts and energy away from the toxic person, you are regaining that much control. The second thing you can do is to start focusing on what you can control. It's easy to get overwhelmed by the toxic person's constant demand for attention. In my own journey with a toxic father, I was constantly frustrated that we couldn't get through a single conversation without it somehow becoming about how great he was. Focusing on this frustration, although understandable, will not help you regain control from the toxic person. Instead, it's better to focus on the things that you can control. For example, with my father, I started to make strategic choices to limit how much time I was spending with him. I would start conversations with him knowing that in 30 minutes, I had to leave in order to make my next appointment. I couldn't control his behaviors in the conversation, but I could control how I structured my time. A few things that you probably can control that often get overlooked include the way you take care of yourself, how you spend your free time, how often you check your messages. By focusing on the things that are in your control, you are more likely to discover ways that you can mitigate or diminish the harm that the toxic person is causing. You cannot self-care your way out of an abusive situation, but you can make an abusive situation a little bit less terrible. The third thing you can do is to embrace strategies that help you make choices about how you respond to the toxic person. Constantly being abused will make even the most kind-hearted person behave in unkind ways. Toxic people know this and will often try to push the people around them to act out. Then the toxic person uses this to make the survivors of abuse appear to be the abuser. You can circumvent this entire strategy by using tools that encourage you to make choices about how you react to the toxic person's behaviors. Now, a tool that I created for my own journey actually comes from the fact that I study Buddhist philosophy. And this tool is called Compassionate Stone. Here, whenever a toxic person starts to act inappropriately toward you, you switch your focus immediately on generating compassion. That's not necessarily compassion for the toxic person, but rather compassion for yourself, for having to deal with this stuff, and compassion for everyone that has to deal with this person. You try to enter such an immersive state that you do not engage with the toxic person. Instead, you let their negative energy fuel your desire for creating compassion. This keeps you from engaging with a toxic person, and eventually the toxic person will stop trying to provoke you, at least for that particular episode. Another similar tool is called Gray Rock. Here, when a toxic person is misbehaving, you try to become as still and boring as a gray rock. Eventually, the toxic person becomes bored and walks away. I prefer Compassionate Stone because it requires less controlling your natural emotions and involves more redirecting those emotions in a positive way. But both strategies are very powerful. So the three things you can do to start taking back control from toxic people are: first, stop giving them your mental energy. Second, start focusing on the things that you can control. And third, embrace strategies that help you make choices about how you want to react to the toxic person. Keep in mind that all three of these require a lot of work to implement. You'll need to be patient as you discover different ways you can implement each one of these. As you make progress on this journey, you want to make sure that you keep in mind that taking back control is a long-term goal, not an immediate win. Because this requires playing the long game, it's important to celebrate small wins along the way. This means that if you can redirect some of your mental energy away from the toxic person, even if it's just for 15 minutes, you should pat yourself on the back. These little victories really do add up over time. If you're looking for support on your journey, I can help. I work one-on-one with folks who are navigating toxic people. You can find all of those details over on my website. It's just empowermentthroughthought.com, and the link is in the description below. Thanks so much for spending some time with me today, and be sure to hit that like button, give us a subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!